Okay, welcome back. So last video we talked about using the cosine rule to find the side length of a triangle. In this particular video what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be finding an angle inside of a triangle. Okay, to do that we need to take our formula that we've established for the cosine rule and we need to rearrange it. You'll notice here that we have an angle in this formula. Okay, so my whole process that I'm going to do here is I'm going to rearrange this so I end up with a positive cos c equal to something. So I'm making this cos of c equal to the subject of my formula. So that is how we're going to do this. So just like with solving equations, what I want you to realise here is that I can remove this from this side to the other side of the equal sign by adding it to both sides. Okay, so if I add to the left hand side 2ab cos c, right, and what I do to one side I do to the other, so plus 2ab cos c, these two are going to cancel out. So now on the left hand side of the equal sign we're going to have c squared plus 2ab cos c is equal to, this is now cancelled out, so we're only left with a squared plus b squared on the right hand side. Now what I need to do, okay, is I need to start solving this equation to get rid of all of these unnecessary bits near the cos c. Remember, we're trying to find this particular thing in our equation, right? So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of c squared, okay? Now this is a positive c squared, so the inverse operation will be minus c squared, okay? And what I do to one side, I do to both, okay? So I'm minus c squared off my right hand side as well. These two will cancel. I'm now left with 2ab cos c is equal to a squared plus b squared minus c squared. Alright, we're nearly there. You can see that we actually have only one more thing that we need to get rid of in this particular formula. Okay, right, in between the 2ab and the cos c is a time sign. We don't write it in mathematics, but it is there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 2ab. Right? Now make sure when you're dividing the right hand side, you divide all of it. So now these two will cancel. We're now left with cos c, so our cos of an angle is now equal, which is exactly what we wanted to achieve. It's now equal to a squared plus b squared minus c squared all over 2ab. So all we've done is we've taken the formula to find a side length of a triangle for the cosine rule and rearranged it to obtain this new formula here, which is going to help us find an angle. So this is what we're going to be using today when we're doing our types of questions. Okay, so jumping into our first example here underneath our rearrangement. Okay, remember when we were talking about the cosine rule, we know when to use it if we have three sides and one angle. Okay, one of them we don't know, right? We don't know whether it's the side or the angle that we don't know, but in this particular case we have three sides and an unknown angle. So we're going to use the cosine rule that we just established to find this particular angle. Okay, so there are going to be some tricky bits in regards to this formula. I'm going to point out a common mistake that's made by a lot of people when they're doing these types of questions. I'm going to substitute in here my angle. In this particular case, my angle will be P. And you'll notice that my angle is the included angle between 5 and 8. Okay? You remember before when we were talking about these sorts of questions, right? This side will be our A and our B. So what I tend to do to help me to remember these sorts of things, and I'll show you why in a moment, is I tend to draw an arrow to the opposite side of my triangle, right? And either side of my angle, that is my A and my B. So let's substitute that in, okay? So it's going to be 8 squared plus 5 squared. Now you'll notice we must be careful with the side that we subtract off. And the side that we subtract off is the side that I drew the arrow to. Okay, so this side that we subtract off is always opposite the angle that we are trying to find. Always. Cannot stress that enough. Always opposite the angle that we're trying to find. And in that particular case, that will be 7 squared. All over 2 times 8 times 5. Okay, so what happens now is that you plug this in onto your calculator, you're going to come up with an answer of a half. Okay, after it's all simplified down, your answer will simplify out to be cos of p is equal to a half. Now you can do some rearranging, and you'll end up entering this into your calculator like we've done before, okay, to find out that P is equal to 60 degrees. Okay, so that is our answer. Alright, that is our answer there. So just be aware that is how we approach these sorts of questions, all the while using skills that we've used from our other styles of questions, including the sine rule, but it's just a process. So the key point that I want to highlight here, the A and the B are the sides either side of your angle that you're talking about. We call P the included angle. Okay, and the side that we subtract off, our C, is always opposite the angle that we are trying to find. Just be aware of that, because this is where the most common mistakes are likely to be made in this question, in subtracting off the side that we're working with. So let's do a second example where we're again trying to find this angle in here. Okay, so we go back to our formula. We're using cos of C. This is the angle that we're using, the formula that we're using when we're trying to find angles with the cosine rule. A squared plus B squared minus C squared all over 2AB. We know that this is a cosine rule question because we have 3 sides and 1 angle. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to highlight my sides, either side of my angle, and I draw an arrow across my triangle to know what I'm putting into this formula. Okay, so in this particular case, it's not going to be a C that we write down, it's going to be an A, so don't get confused by that. So cos of A is equal to my A squared. I can pick either 10 or 11. 10 squared plus 11 squared. Okay, and again, now we're subtracting off the side opposite the angle that we're trying to find. So this will be minus 9 squared. All over 2 times 10 times 11. Okay, so I cannot stress that enough. We're subtracting off the side that we're the opposite the angle that we're trying to find. Now, after you enter all of this in on your calculator, you're going to end up with cos of A is equal to 7 over 11. Okay, just like before when we're finding an angle, we now take the inverse cos of the right hand side. Okay, you enter this value in onto your calculator, so you end up with your angle being equal to 50.48 degrees. Now, of course, this is only to 2 decimal places, and you must specify that when you're doing those types of questions. Okay, so I'll just move this up so you can see this. Alright, I've only said this is going to 2 decimal places. Alright, some questions may ask you to do it differently. They might ask you to round it to minutes. You will be told within the sorts of questions that you're doing, so just be aware of that. But for the moment, that is your answer there. Okay? I hope that helps in your understanding of finding an angle with the cosine rule. But yeah, just remember that the side that you're subtracting, and that is the biggest thing, is opposite the angle that you're trying to find. Okay? Alright, good luck.